For my lesson, I chose to have the students determine how mass and height of an object affect its gravitational potential energy. The objective of my lesson was students will develop an understanding of energy and how mass and height of an object affect its gravitational potential energy. The mathematics covered by this lesson were 7.1c, students will use multiplication and division of whole numbers to solve problems. 7.2d, students will use division to find unit rates and ratios in proportional situations. 7.11a, students will select and use appropriate representations for representing data. 7.12a, students will describe a set of data using mean. And 7.13d, students will select tools such as real objects, manipulatives, paper and pencil, and technology for mental math and number sense to solve problems. For the engage part of my lesson, I had a ramp built. I had the students predict what would happen if the height of the ramp changed. For the explore part of the activity, my students actually got to create their own ramp to see the effects of the height on gravitational potential energy. They did a marble roll, which consisted of them using a meter stick, some textbooks, and a cup and a marble. The students were asked to record the mass of the marble, the number of books used, and the height of the ramp. The students were to find the distance for 3 trials and find the average. Here's some video clip of what happened. For the explain part of my lesson, I had the students to explain to me what was the effect of the height of the ramp on the gravitational potential energy of the marble. I had one person from each group give me a sentence or two about what happened to the energy of the marble. And these were some of the responses I received.
As the height increases, what happens to our energy?
It goes faster. Like, when it goes like down.
The higher the ramp is, the faster it goes downward. The ramp ain't that high, it goes slower.
The next day, the students were asked to find how the mass of a marble affects the gravitational potential energy. They were given 3 marbles, each of a different mass. They had to weigh the marble, and then they had to roll it down the ramp. The ramp was the same height for all 3 marbles, and they had 3 trials per marble.
Alright, so yesterday we did the lab on the marble drop. If you remember, we were measuring different heights of the marble. So today we're going to see the effect of the mass. So yesterday we saw the effect of height. So as the height increases, the gravitational potential energy increases. So today we're going to look at the effect of mass on the object's energy. Okay? Normal. So today, the only thing we're going to change today is the mass, because we want to see the effects of mass on the gravitational potential energy. Okay? So you're going to create a ramp. So you can create your own ramp. It could be 2 or 3 books. You have to measure the height of your ramp in order for you to be able to plug it into your formula.
The students were asked to fill in this chart for each marble. So they had 3 marbles, each of a different mass, and they had 2 trials per marble. Once the students were done with their data table, they were asked to fill in these 3 questions. How does the mass of a marble have an effect on its gravitational potential energy? What do you think would happen if we rolled 2 marbles down the ramp, and why? What do you think would happen if we rolled 3 marbles down the ramp, and why? For the elaborate section of the lesson, the students were asked to do a ball bounce. For the ball bounce, the students were given 2 different types of balls and were asked to bounce the ball from a given height. They had to record the first bounce, and they were asked to find the average. They were given this handout to fill in the height of the trial, find the GPE, and record 3 drops. Once they had recorded the 3 drops, they were to find the average of the 3. And they did this for 2 different types of balls. The students were asked to create a graph where they record the height they dropped the ball at and the height the ball bounced.
The higher the height, the higher the bounce.
And this was a graph from one of the groups. For the evaluate part, I gave my students this energy formula test. It was 6 questions in which they had to find either the gravitational potential energy, or they had to find what was the difference in the two, or they had to find out the potential energy of an object 1/4 up or 1/4 down from a height. I do believe that my lesson had some integration to it. It did have mathematical and science concepts. Some of the mathematical concepts were multiplying decimals, ratios. Some of the scientific concepts were energy, gravity, gravitational potential energy. There were a few misconceptions with this lesson. So the first misconception was on the teacher side was the fact that not all students are going to come in knowing what the mean or the average is. So I did have a few students not knowing or not quite remembering how to find it, so I had to actually go around and kind of do a mini lesson about it until I was able to find a student who actually knew what it was.
You add all of them up and divide by 3.
Another misconception came from the student side. When I first asked the student, what do you think would happen as I roll the marble down the ramp, I received this answer. Through this lesson and activities, we were able to clear up this misconception. For this lesson, my evidence of student learning would have to be in some of the responses that I got from the students. So just in their discourse, also in their tests, where they have to find the gravitational potential energy of an object, or they had to solve a word problem using gravitational potential energy. And I also had one student who was able to tell me that when we did the ball bounce activity, that the gravity actually pushes on the ball for it to bounce back up. So to me, that was good evidence of student learning. I really enjoyed teaching this lesson. I was able to get outside my comfort zone of teaching science, but I do think that there would be some modifications I would make. I would allow more time for presentation where students are able to discuss the effects of mass and height. I had to cut it short due to our benchmark testing, so I had to shorten the lesson. So definitely dedicating more time to the lesson would be a modification. I would also change my evaluation method. I would maybe have students create some sort of video or some sort of presentation that explains their learning, or maybe even have them write a reflection about what they learned in class during this lesson.